How to open RX8 headlights. So today we have these RX8 headlights in, and we're doing a pretty basic modification. We're just painting some of the chrome pieces on the inside and installing a switchback halo. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to show you how to open up the headlights themselves. And as always, we're gonna start with the tools. So first things first, I actually like these foam tile mats. They're pretty good for setting the light on and making sure that if it falls, it's not gonna damage it. It protects the lens a little bit, but if you really wanna protect the lens, then we use some cling wrap. We go ahead and put that on the lens so that it's protected. Next up is the more obvious is a flathead screwdriver. I like to use the pocket screwdriver to get things started, and then after that, I'll use a bigger flathead screwdriver to speed things up. After that is a Phillips head screwdriver. There's screws on the back of this that go through the back housing into the lens, so we're gonna have to use that to get those screws out. You can also use a impact. This is what I normally use just because it's faster. You're gonna need some sort of heat. You can use a heat gun, but I recommend using an oven because this gives much cleaner heat all the way around the light instead of this, which is, you know, just heat right here. And after you've modified the light, you're gonna need to reseal it. So this is butyl. This is OEM grade butyl for headlights, sold by Morimoto Retro Rubber. This stuff is the best for resealing your headlights. This is a tool that you'll need if you're gonna do a lot of headlights. This is the clamps that you use to actually clamp the lens to the back housing while the butyl is cooling off. See, I have a whole bucket full of them and I use them all the time. Of course, you don't need this, but it is nice for keeping track of screws and stuff. First thing I want to do is remove this harness. Came with the light. Most of the time it won't. Your harness will most likely stay in the car. Do remove bulbs. You don't know what's going to get caught up in there, and it's a little bit safer. Now we can take these screws out. This is where you'll use your Phillips head screwdriver. Of course, I'm going to use an impact. With all the screws removed, we are now ready to go in the oven. Do not put the light in the oven with the plastic on. For my oven, I put the light in there for 8 minutes at 220 degrees. If you've never put a light in the oven before, I would start at around 210 to 220 for 8 minutes and feel if the adhesive around the lens is loosening up or not. If it's not, then you can put it back in the oven for longer. I would refrain from heating it up anymore. You don't want to end up melting the lens. What I mean by that is you don't want to put it in there any longer than 8 to 10 minutes at a time. You can do several different chunks of 8 to 10 minutes in the oven, but you don't want to do, let's say, 20 to 25 minutes. You could melt the headlight on the bottom where the headlight is resting on the grates of the oven. You could melt the top of the lens where it's getting close to the heating elements and everything. There's just a lot that could go wrong. I personally like to leave it at 8 to 10 minutes and then check on the light, check on the adhesive. If it's not loose enough, then I will put it back in there for another 5 to 8 minutes and check again. But I don't like to leave it in there for like a full 20 minutes by itself because you just don't know what's going to happen, especially if it's an oven that you've never used before. All right, so after 8 minutes, you're gonna go ahead and pull the light out of the oven and get it ready to open. So what I do first is I take my pocket screwdriver, I loosen up all the tabs that back housing has that hold the lens on. You don't want to pry too much, you just want to loosen it up to make sure that the tab on the inside isn't gonna get caught whenever you do end up doing a little bit of prying. I'm pretty sure that there are a few tabs along here. I just can't remember where they are yet. As long as you can get these main ones, you should be able to get the rest of these loose. You can use your big screwdriver, big flathead screwdriver, and what you're gonna do is put the screwdriver in along with the light to go along with the light. You're literally going to twist the screwdriver to loosen the lens. You don't want to go like this because you're going to end up tearing the back housing and it won't seal up properly. If you twist the screwdriver underneath the lens, you can actually lift the lens without tearing the back housing up. Now I can already tell that this is loose enough. You can see that I haven't fully pulled it apart yet, but what I have done is loosen the lens. So now whenever I go pull it apart, it does come apart pretty easy. To get the strings, go ahead and loosen it. Go ahead and take them loose like this. There we go. Now that headlight is loose. Now you can do any modifications you want to it and get it ready to be sealed back up. To do that, we're going to use our retro rubber here and we are going to put it in the trough of the headlight. So the way I do this is by unrolling a little bit of it. I'm not going to cut this whole thing because we are going to stretch it. So I'll probably do about this much for right now. You can always grab more. It's a little bit more difficult to put stretched butyl back in the box without ruining it. So after you snip it, you're gonna go ahead and stretch it real. Put it in here like so. Did have a little bit of excess. Now that you have the trough filled up with fresh butyl, you can now put the lens back on. Obviously, this has not been modified yet, so I'm doing this more as an example of what to do. I won't actually reseal this all the way. So, you're gonna go ahead and try to push this lens on as much as you can by hand, and then put it back in the oven. That's gonna go in there for 8 minutes, and then you can take it out and start putting clamps on. It's been 8 minutes. It is now time to put the clamps onto the light. So most lights have this lip that goes all the way around the lens, and that is exactly where you're going to put your clamps. So up here on the RX8, it's kind of sloped. It makes it pretty difficult to clamp on. See right there. I actually start on the bottom of this. Even though it is difficult, it's still a good idea to go ahead and put clamps on there. You have to just hold it in place while it pulls it in. It's a good idea to go ahead and put the screws into the lens while the butyl is still hot. It makes it so much easier to get the screw to go all the way through the butyl while it's still soft and tacky. If you try to do it after, still do it. It just makes it more difficult and it's easier to miss the lens. And that is how you open and reseal an RX8 headlight. This one's pretty ugly. This one's getting better. Still have to do a lens restoration here. We're gonna get on that pretty soon. But yeah, that's it. Okay, bye.